Hey, how's everybody doing out there? Elric Ferris here on the Motherboards.org YouTube channel, coming to you pantsless today with my host, JJ from ASUS. And today we're going to be showing you guys a very first look at a very nice top-of-the-line motherboard. Now, these guys have a very nice channel stack for everything on the Z77, but this is the top of the stack. This motherboard is the new P8Z77-V Premium. That's right, this motherboard's going to come to market at about $500, but it's got all kinds of crazy features, including the very first certified Thunderbolt port. So that said, let's hand this board over to JJ and let him tell you all the great features of this new flagship board.
Thanks, Doc. Okay, so as you can see here, like you said, we've got our new Dash V Premium. So we've been working really hard on this board. The premium SKUs don't usually actually always come to the market as part of every single one of our chipset launches.
Haven't seen one since P55.
Yeah, in most situations, generally kind of reserve it for something really special when we kind of really trying to push the envelope and adding a lot of functionality, a lot of versatility, and overall really trying to bring a true premium product to the market. And so we've definitely done that with this board. We pretty much took every single thing that we had on the Deluxe and we pushed it further. So right off the bat, of course, we keep a lot of the standard things that you would expect in terms of our digital power delivery. That's still present. So digital power delivery and control for the CPU, for the VRM, and for the DRAM. So we're all good to go there. That's going to mean you're going to get great efficiency, great overclocking potential, and of course you can tweak and tune that in the UEFI or in the operating system.
Now this particular board, JJ, like you said, since we're there, this is a 20-phase 16+4 power conditioning, right?
That's correct. So we definitely have quite a bit of power delivery there, more than ample enough for whatever level of overclocking you're going to be doing on the board. Now, in terms of some of the new aspects that we've gone ahead and incorporated in here, one is an aesthetic touch. Is if you actually look at the PCB in itself, it actually does feature our flat matte black PCB design. So this is a little bit different than kind of the black gloss PCB that we normally use on the majority of our boards. So it's just a subtle aesthetic, but it is a little bit different when compared to our previous boards. Now, one of the really big things that you're going to see right off the bat here is going to be the multi-PCIe expansion, right?
4-way SLI and 4-way Crossfire.
You got it. Normally, of course, this wouldn't be something that's supported on the Z77 chipset due to PCIe lane limitations, but just like on our Z77WS board, we've gone ahead and incorporated the new PLX Gen 3 multiplexing switch. So this works in conjunction with the PCIe lanes that are given from the actual Ivy Bridge CPU, and this is what is allowing us to essentially have support for 4-way SLI or 4-way Crossfire. So we have a lot of expansion here, regardless of whether you're doing, single card, doing dual card, or triple card, whatever variation, this board's going to be able to take care of you. The other cool part about it is even going to be in spacing considerations, right? You could essentially run 2 triple slot cards and still be able to fit that on the board with no overhang, or you could run, of course, two slot cards and then still have spacing in between. So you have a lot of permutations in terms of how you could configure this and still be able to have a lot of bandwidth.
So right there, JJ, say that I wanted to run 2 690s in a configuration. Right now, to run the board, what would be the optimal way to place the cards in this motherboard?
That's actually a good point in terms of asking that, because for one, if you notice, we don't make all the slots the same color, and consciously that's done to actually help you know that there's going to be a difference in bandwidth. So these 2 blue slots actually indicate that they're both running 16 by 16 if you're running 2 cards. So that would be the ideal configuration for a quad SLI as opposed to a 4-way SLI configuration where you would essentially be doing a card in each slot.
Excellent.
So with that, moving on down here, we've got another new feature that we're introducing on the Premium, which is mSATA support. But the really cool part is actually we're shipping it with a 32GB SSD on board.
So let's just get this straight. Right when the person buys this motherboard, right out of the box, it's already going to have this little tiny thing on it. Right off the bat.
That's correct. Now here we've already gone and shown for the purposes of just flexibility and upgrade, we have 120GB run core mSATA SSD on here that we could actually run the entire operating system off. And actually some of the demos that we've shot earlier, they were all run directly off of this SSD. But the board itself will come with this mSATA disk. Essentially that's a 32GB module that will allow you to go ahead and run the SSD caching that's part of the chipset with essentially one click. As compared to normally on Z77 SSD caching, you got to go into the UEFI, you have to make some changes,
configurations,
you got to go through that. You don't have to actually do any of that. You can go straight into our software now, and just like we were able to do one-click setup configuration SSD caching for our own SSD caching tech, you can now do that for the Intel controller with this setup as well. So it's a very seamless, easy way to go ahead and extend the performance and take advantage of that.
Yeah, and it's right on the motherboard right when you get it, so it's very simple.
That's correct. Now, moving over to the SATA ports, of course, we keep the standard, right angle connectivity, which really gives us a clean and sensible layout in terms of not impacting when we have long PCI cards. But we've got something really cool that we've added for this generation. So our deluxe motherboard featured ASUS SSD caching. Now, that was done in addition to the SSD caching technology that's built into the chipset. And that was because we had a lot of users that would say, hey, you know what, I'm going to run RAID off of these two ports right here, the SATA 60 Intel ports, but maybe I want to throw on like a 2 terabyte hard drive onto the ASUS SSD caching ports with an SSD and still have faster local storage performance. So we still wanted to maintain that, but it being premium, we wanted to even push it to the next generation. So this is SSD caching technology version 2. And there's 4 ports on here, and the cool thing you can do here is there's a lot more flexibility. So we could go ahead and put one mechanical hard drive on here, and then take multiple SSDs and run actually the caching tech from those multiple SSDs to that one hard drive and extend the performance further.
So just be clear for the users out there who are wanting to buy this board. So port number 1 right here will be your standard hard drive. Mm-hmm. All these other ports will be SSDs, and you'll be able to combine the functionality of all 3 of those SSDs as the caching for that single mechanical drive. True?
That's correct. So that would be great for content professionals, like a 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte, even 4 terabyte drive, and you really want to pump up the performance even further, but while still keeping that real big benefit of having high storage capacity.
And they're also able to use, if they want to do different configuration, they can hook up a mechanical hard drive to this one, a mechanical hard drive to this one, and both these secondary channels could be the SSD caching as well.
That's correct. So even, once again, giving you more flexibility that if you need a huge amount of storage but you want it accelerated, then you could do that. 2 terabytes here, 2 terabytes here, and then 60 gig there, 60 gig there, and then you could have SSD caching for each one.
That's incredible. I don't think any other board has that either.
That's correct. So like always, this ASUS SSD caching technology is exclusive to our boards, and this one is exclusively only on the premium.
Excellent.
So in addition to that, of course, we keep some perennial features like we would normally expect, but we've also improved upon them in some ways in terms of the network controllers that we have on the board. If we go ahead and turn the board sideways right here, you can see that we have 2 gigabit network ports. Of course, we're big proponents of Intel LAN, so we now have 2 Intel LAN controllers as opposed to what we had on the Deluxe, which would be one was Intel and the other one was Realtek. Now, both of these also still offer our advanced network iControl packet priority control software, so you can go in and tweak and tune it for gaming, for web browsing, for streaming a video, for downloading, whatever it might be.
And it also supports teaming as well, correct?
That's right, 100%. You can go ahead and combine these two together to go ahead and aggregated performance, so you even have better network throughput.
Sounds good.
Now we also, of course, have our Wi-Fi Go module right here. So this enables full dual band support, so 82.11n, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. 300 megabits Wi-Fi plus Bluetooth version 4.0, so that's built onto the board as well.
A lot of stuff on a little card.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the flexibility that we have here, there's just tons and tons. We are still, of course, maintaining our Fan Expert 2 design implementation, where, of course, we have 6 4-pin PWM fan headers, and those can all be fully controlled, whether they're within the UEFI or whether within the operating system. You can run our automatic fan calibration, you can reposition the fan headers, rename them, a lot of extensive control, and just like the other Z77 boards that we're showing, even in the cool demo that you guys have.
As I say, if any of you folks missed the demo, see it in the description. We actually show all the stuff about running the Fan Expert 2. Did a nice little video on that. If you guys missed that, check it out in the description. Don't want to miss it.
Yeah, definitely very cool, especially that for this generation we also added the 3-pin fan control for all the chassis fan headers. But moving back over to the backplane I/O, one of the things that we do want to touch on is going to be some of the display output functionality. So here we have, of course, DisplayPort, and we have HDMI. So we have 2 digital outputs right there. Now, one of these ones are, of course, the right above it is really interesting, and that's going to be this guy.
The Thunderbolt.
That's correct. As you noted earlier, this is the world's first certified Thunderbolt motherboard, and that means we worked really closely with Intel to validate this board to ensure optimal performance, functionality, and interoperability. And this port is natively essentially providing you DisplayPort as well as the Thunderbolt storage connection technology. So the cool thing about this is that this premium board actually has the ability to natively run 3 panels off of it. So if you run DisplayPort, Mini DisplayPort, and HDMI, you could have 3 panels all running off the iGPU. And then, as we've shown actually in some of the other videos today, you also have the flexibility that you could even have a discrete graphics card using the Lucid MVP software and then have that be processed through the Thunderbolt and still working.
Exactly. Plus, they're going to see the video. They're going to notice that we've daisy chained a bunch of drives even before it even gets to the monitor, which I just think is incredible.
Yeah.
Thunderbolt port, you folks are going to be impressed with the technology as this emerges.
Yeah, pretty much we've brought the fastest interconnect and the most flexible interconnect that's in the industry, and that's really what makes this a true premium motherboard, is that we've brought the most advanced interconnect that's out there on the market in terms of performance and flexibility and put it natively on the motherboard. And then you just you top that off with, of course, the rest of the functions and features that we have on the board, where we have DTS Ultra 2 PC with the DTS Connect technology, of course, all our specialized TPU and EPU technology for better overclocking, as well as, for undervolting and better efficiency with the TPU, and, all the little things that you would expect, like power and reset and clear CMOS. Debug posts or the QLED lighting mechanisms, MemOK, all that stuff is there.
Let's just real quick to just touch over the TPU and EPU. For you folks out there who may have missed some of the other videos that we've done, the TPU is basically an instant overclock and the EPU is basically for power efficiency. So that's those two buttons are actually for you guys to experiment with them and see if you use them. But basically, if you're an overclocker, you might want to look at the TPU. If you're someone who doesn't overclock and just wants your board to run stable and very cool, you want to take a look at the EPU, correct?
Yeah, you're 100% right. One note that we'll make is on the EPU, it won't affect performance at all. Like you said, it's focused at just lowering power consumption, lowering temperatures, and TPU is just going to be a one-step way that if you want to go ahead and take like your 3770K, get about a 4.2 gigahertz overclock, just flip it in that direction, that's it, you're good to go.
Instant overclock.
So I think that definitely there's going to be a lot more that I'm sure you're going to be covering, of course, in the review of this board, as well as, you're going to go down some of these items when you actually unbox it. But that gives you definitely some of the new points that we're bringing here on this premium, and I think it really is a premium board.
Let's take a look at something else though real quick, JJ, because a lot of people don't take a look at the back of the board. Most people just see the back of the board. Why don't you explain a little bit about this technology right here? Because a lot of people ask, what is that? So why don't you give them a little thing and tell them what that actually is?
So as part of kind of our design and our validation to ensure the best stability, we've implemented this actually on a number of boards for a very long period of time, and it's called Cool Stack. And this is essentially just to help to provide additional heat dissipation, because actually in the majority of chassis you have very little space between the back of the board and the actual back of the chassis in itself, and sometimes it doesn't always receive optimal airflow. So underneath here you actually have some very sensitive components that are called your MOSFETs and your drivers. Those are actually the parts of the VRM that produce the most heat. And so as such, we've gone ahead and put these strips on there to help and aid in the actual heat dissipation process, so that we can go ahead and have better reliability and overall better long-term stability.
So these things are basically absorbing heat from the MOSFETs and everything and then generate that away from the motherboard.
Correct, and dissipating it outwards. So that's the main reason why we have that. And of course there's two here because of the extensive VRM design that we have on this premium board.
Right on.
So that overall, I think paints a pretty cool picture of what we're doing in terms of the premium board. It's pretty much, I think at this point, has about just every single thing you could want on a high-end board. About the only other thing that would make it more fitting is putting, like an awesome like Zonar STX or like a Phoebus card on there if you're looking for high-grade audio. But otherwise, you've pretty much got every single thing you could look for on a motherboard.
Yeah, you have so many new features, lots of great features there with all your entire stack, plus the new stuff makes for a very premium motherboard.
Yeah, definitely. And I think actually you were asking me, lastly, I'm sorry, on the USB, this one does come as compared to the deluxe board. It does come with the USB 3 breakout box.
Okay.
And that is fully compatible with our USB 3 boost technology, which extends, of course, the USB 3 performance for either the Intel ports or the AS Media ports that we have on the board.
Another video we did, if you missed that one, check it out as well. All right, man. Thank you, JJ. Thanks for bringing this board. See you folks later here on Motherboards.org.